The following program is a locally produced feature presentation. Du Bois TV proudly supports our local community by providing airtime and support for educational and community development related video programming that is created by our local schools, nonprofit groups, and independent video producers. Du Bois TV encourages and welcomes content from our local communities. Please visit us online at duboistv.net and contact us for more information. And now, please enjoy our feature presentation.
Okay.
Tell us about the science that you saw here and how this applies to your classroom. Got it?
Okay, got it. Hi, I'm Jade Steele, and you're watching Jeff Tech TV, and I'm here with Mrs. Raybuck and Mr. Smelko, talking about the academic and shop integration.
In my science classes, we're talking about the different chemical reactions that are happening and breaking bonds and forming bonds, endothermic and exothermic reactions. And here today was an excellent example of breaking bonds with a fire, and it's an exothermic reaction because that fire is giving off lots and lots of heat. Now the endothermic side of it is the branding irons absorbing all of that heat from the fire, and that's breaking the bonds in that iron in order for them to be able to make the iron malleable and using it then to make their brands. And this is a perfect example of our shops being able to teach even the most basic of science lessons and making it more real for our students.
The purpose of the branding exercise was, first of all, initiated by Mrs. Georgia Smelko through her American history class. She came to me and asked me if we could do a project together, and they were on the Old West, and branding irons presented a great project that would fit together with both her class and my class. And as Mrs. Raybuck said, this interjects some metallurgy. My students learn to weld with modern methods and form metal with modern methods, but get very little opportunity to form metal with what we would call primitive methods, such as blacksmithing, heating the metal up in a fire, heating it up with a torch, and then hammering on it. So this was an opportunity for them to experience that, along with the fact that it was an opportunity for them to design. They learned to design and draw, so we can go across the curriculum and look at it as a drafting type of experience. They had to plan their project. They had to actually stand there at the anvil using the heat, as Mrs. Raybuck said, to heat the metal and then form it. And the whole experience, what it really gave them was a greater appreciation that all learning that we do in life, whether it be in high school or as an adult, as a lifelong learner, as which all of us will have to be, and it's required to be in life, that everything is interconnected. There is nothing that stands alone, and there is nothing that will not assist us when we learn it. All disciplines in learning transfer to another discipline, and all things are intertwined, and thus integration, especially as we see it today with this hands-on action project, provides a great vehicle to exhibit that, not only for the welding students and the history students to experience it, but for all students that came to visit, science students, to see that this is exactly what life is, all interconnected, and everything affects everything else, and what we learn in one area can absolutely be transferred to another.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smelko, and thank you, Ms. Raybuck. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add to our photo interview today?
I have a question for you.
All right, we're going to get Mr. Ian here.
Absolutely. From an instructional standpoint, Mrs. Raybuck, where are you going to go with this when you go back to the classroom?
My students will be learning more about endothermic and exothermic reactions, and now Mr. Otero's shop is going to be able to put this video on my big campus on the computer, so now any student who was not able to be here today, or my class that's not going to be able to come up because they're not going to be putting this demonstration on a little later, they're going to be able to see the demonstration anyway from my big campus on the computers.
American history and welding have got together, and in American history too, Mrs. Georgia Smelko's class, they've been studying the West. They've been studying cowboys. They've been studying branding. So you people that have Mrs. Smelko for history probably know more about the brands than I do. But some things I do know about branding are that there's basically an alphabet. It's still very much used today. In fact, you can go to college in Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, any of the western states and you can become a brand inspector. In other words, your job is to go out and look at cattle, and you have a book, a national registry, like we all have our cars registered and have a number on the license plate. All these cows have a brand on, and there's a book that tells you who they belong to. I thought that was pretty interesting. And in Texas alone, there's 5 million cows, 5 million head of cattle, 5 million. I think that's outstanding, because I don't know how many are in Pennsylvania, but I know there's not that many. So today what we're going to start with, to show you how this integrates into welding, history fits into welding, is I'm going to show you a little bit about metallurgy and what we did using blacksmithing techniques. Tom, can you hold this a minute?
Yeah.
You can obviously see that this piece of metal's heated red hot, and you can see that the magnet sticks to it. But when I put the magnet up here, the metal is no longer magnetized. Now, a lot of you would say, well, that's because it's hot. Well, that's the secondary cause of it. What happens when we heat the metal up is the molecules start moving around. As they move around, all the carbon that is within this rod segregates to the outside of the rod. In other words, it's sucked to the outside of the rod. As it's sucked to the outside of the rod, it loses its magnetic quality. This happens at 1450 on what they call low carbon steel. The reason I showed you this was because I know Mrs. Raybuck's here today, and I wanted to interject a little science that we use in welding. Why would that be important? Well, when you raise a material, especially metal, to a certain point in welding or heating it or heat treating it, it changes the molecular structure, and all of the grain structure changes. What does that mean? That means that the metal is no longer what it was, but when we're done with it, we want to make it back what it was. How do we do that? We either treat it by heating it before we're done welding it, or we pack it in something to cool it slowly. So that was a little lesson in metallurgy, and you can see now it's cooled below 1450, and it's magnetic again. The other thing that we're going to see is a few blacksmithing techniques. That's how the students made their branding irons. Hunter's going to show you how we took round rod, go ahead, and we flattened it out. Remember, and we would slowly work this, and we would keep reheating it. We would not flatten it all at once. We would heat it, flatten it a little bit, heat it, flatten a little bit. That's good, Hunter, thank you. Remember, in the days when the cowboys had their branding irons, there was no weld shop. There was only a blacksmith. And the blacksmith would make the branding irons for them. You would go there and you'd put your order in for what you wanted, and he would make them, and that's how he did it, except he heated all the materials probably with a coal fire, is what he did. So we wanted to show you a little bit of the blacksmithing techniques, and we can tell that we had the temperature right on our piece because you can see the scale coming off. Any good blacksmith will tell you when the scale comes off, it was the right temperature to be hitting on it. So that's a little bit about that. Now we're going to go and we're going to actually demonstrate the branding. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Tom. Are you going to be the person who tells, right? You're going to tell everything that's going on.
Okay.
You guys that have your branding irons, one at a time, will do it.
Basically, when we attach the handle to the branding iron, that way we can hold on to it when it's hot. We're going to be putting brands on the pieces of welding leather. Sure. Here we're going to attempt to try to put at least 4 on each one.
Sorry.
It's pretty easy to brand them.
And you know about how they did it and why they did it, right?
Yeah. Okay. Now, we're gonna be, okay, now when they stick the brand on there, you gotta rotate it forward, backwards, and left to right. That way we can get the brand on there.
And actually on the cow, they're actually branding the hide, the hair. They're not really branding the skin. It's not breaking the skin. But there's one brand that we did. This one was Ron Wingert's, and you can see the W. And where's Ronnie? Did he leave?
Are they doing another one?
Yeah, we're going to do a couple more. Did he explain what his brand was?
Yeah, no.
Ronnie, explain what your brand was. You didn't explain it.
Well, this part here is just supposed to be a sun, and it's just a W inside of it that stands for my last name.
What are these?
That's the sun going up and around it, in like a horseshoe type shape.
So we could probably say that your ranch is the rising W, right? Is that the sun rising? That's basically what it would indicate, right? It's the rising W. In the Old West, every ranch had a name, and usually the brand reflected the name. Who's next? Come on, Cody, you ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead and brand it. You can get it right there, right up here. You're gonna have to really push on it hard. Push down hard on it and roll it around.
Yeah. Cody. What's your brand stand for?
I just picked random letters, put them together. I didn't really,
Basically make up a fake ranch.
basically. Mine didn't show up very well because it wasn't very warm. Because mine was one of the last ones to go in, but I put a J in, a full J, then I cut it into the C, overlapped it. That's basically what I got.
Okay.
Dylan, get up there.
John, you want to explain what's going on here?
Sure. Yours is definitely. What we're doing right now, go ahead, Vince. The student's getting out his branding iron, which is heated over a wood fire as we would find on the prairie. They didn't have coal, so they heated things with a wood fire. And the wood fire needed to be gray, glowing coals. That was what they specified to get the best heat for the best brand. And that's what we can see we have going on here. And we're just trying to get our irons heated up. That one definitely needs to go
That was
back.
mine. That was one of
You're
the
done,
ones that was
Cody?
stuck up top. Yeah.
Yeah, yours, it needed to be hotter.
Mine
Did
was
you see
stuck
that?
on top. That
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to
Well, you're gonna have to get it back in there for the next period, so go ahead and get it back in. Okay, Ian, yours should heat up pretty fast, right?
I put it behind my back.
I had a poker here, where'd
What do
it
you-
go?
Ian, yours is like done.
Yeah, yours is ready. Ian. Why don't you
Yours
go
is been ready ever
in,
since.
because yours is easy to heat up.
All right, Ian, what is your brand? What does it signify?
It's a J, because my middle initial is the easiest letter I can think of to make on short notice.
Great.
Okay. Vince, you ready?
Right here.
Yep.
Mine's bent.
Okay. There's. I can put that board. It's hard to get it back in line again, so don't worry about it. Demonstration of Vince's brand.
Explain
What does your symbol stand for?
My initials VF. For my name, Vince Foinger. I did my initials.
As you can see, this one turned out a whole lot better than the other ones. Okay, Ian, what does your brand stand for?
My brand is a J, obviously. I made it this way because it's a simple letter to make. It's my middle initial too, so that helped a little bit.
Put it right here. Now, what does your brand stand for?
An H for my name.
That was our first run through on doing the branding and doing our little presentation. We just really want you to understand that if you think about what cowboys did and who they were, that had to be a pretty rough life. But I also believe that the people that did it enjoyed it. You had to. They didn't make a lot of money. They were out on the trail for months, and they had a lot of work. And the work day was probably 15, 18 hours long, and there was always impeding trouble. But what we get back to here today is what you learn in your academic classes, I really want you to take this to heart, is always applicable to your shop. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it is. This is a really good example of how it fits in. And you can see the rack that the students made behind here to hold their branding irons. This was all done through metal fabrication and welding. And this is another way that we applied this, including the firebox they fabricated outside. So I hope you enjoyed today's presentation, and I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate you with your attention, and we thank you.
Thank you so much. It's time to wrap this up. I'm Jade Steele from the Digital Media Technology Shop, and you're watching Jeff Tech TV.